What if darkness had won? What if the ring was never destroyed, and Sauron's shadow consumed everything? You know, I've always wondered about this. Like, if things went really badly, if Frodo failed, if Gondor fell, if Middle-earth was just done for, would the Valar actually step in? Or would they just watch? But right now, we're sitting by the fire with Gandalf the White. And trust me, you'll want to hear what he has to say about this. All right, Gandalf, the floor is yours.
You ask a question that troubles the heart, my young friend. What if Sauron had won? What if the darkness had indeed prevailed? Let me paint you a picture. A dark one, I'm afraid. But sometimes we must look into the abyss to truly understand what we fought against. Imagine, if you will, the year 3020 of the Third Age, but not as it was, not as it should have been. In this unfortunate telling, Frodo Baggins fell to the ring's temptation atop Mount Doom. Or perhaps he never made it that far at all. Perhaps the Nazgul caught him on the plains. Perhaps Shelob's venom proved too strong. Perhaps 1,000 different ways the quest could have failed. And fail it did. In this nightmare we conjure, the ring returned to its master. Can you imagine that moment? The Dark Lord's triumph. His terrible joy as the One Ring slipped back upon his finger after 3,000 years. The foundations of Barad-dûr shook with his laughter. If you could call that sound laughter. It was more like the grinding of mountains, the screaming of tortured stone. With the ring restored, Sauron's power became... absolute is not quite the word. Overwhelming, perhaps. Terrible, certainly. Within months, Minas Tirith fell. The White City, that beacon of hope of men's enduring strength, it became a blackened husk. The Tower of Ecthelion toppled, the White Tree burned, and in its place, Sauron raised a new tower, a pale shadow of Barad-dûr, from which his servants ruled with iron fists. Rohan? The Horse Lords fought valiantly, as was their nature, but without Gondor's support, without the army of the dead, without hope, they were overrun. Edoras burned. The golden halls of Meduseld became a stable for wargs and worse things. The Rohirrim who survived were enslaved, put to work in the forges of Isengard, their horses slaughtered or broken to the service of orcs.
Wait, even the horses?
Yes, I'm afraid so. Sauron wasted nothing, and he delighted in breaking beautiful things. Lothlorien, Galadriel and Celeborn held out longer than most. The power of Nenya, the Ring of Adamant, protected the Golden Wood for a time. But without the One Ring's destruction, the three rings lost their purpose. They became anchors to a sinking ship. Eventually, Dol Guldur's armies, reinforced by legions from Mordor, overwhelmed even that blessed realm. The Malorn trees were hewn down. The elves were slain or fled across the sea, those who could reach the havens. Ah, the havens. Círdan held the Grey Havens as long as he was able, granting passage to any elf who could reach his shores. But Sauron's armies marched north, and even that last refuge fell. The ships were burned. The elves still in Middle-earth, they faded, retreating into hidden places, becoming whispers and shadows, until even memory of them became legend, and legend became myth, and myth became nothing at all. Rivendell endured longest of all the elven realms, protected by Elrond's wisdom and the power of Vilya, but isolated, cut off, watching the world darken around them. Eventually, even Imladris could not stand alone. Elrond led his people away, seeking the secret ways west, and the last homely house fell silent and empty. The dwarves, stubborn, brave, loyal to the last. Erebor and the Iron Hills fought a desperate war against the Easterlings and Sauron's northern armies. They held for years, in their mountain fortresses. But Sauron had time. He had numbers. He had patience. Eventually, even Durin's folk were beaten down, their halls dark, their forges cold. The Shire. Oh, the Shire. Do you know what hurts most about this vision? The little things. The green hills. The party tree. Bag End's round door. Saruman's ruffians had been only the beginning. Once Sauron's full attention turned to that quiet corner of the world, the hobbits never stood a chance. They were enslaved, put to work in great industrial complexes, their lands strip-mined, their fields poisoned. The Shire became another Isengard, wheels turning, smoke rising, green things dying. Within 50 years, Middle-earth was unrecognizable. The forests were ash. The rivers ran black with poison. Great factories rose where cities once stood, churning out weapons and chains. Men who survived lived as slaves. Those from Gondor, Rohan, Dale, and all the other realms of the Free Peoples. Some men, of course, served willingly. The promise of power is intoxicating after all. Sauron rewarded his human lieutenants with dominion over the enslaved masses. They became his black Númenóreans, lords of ruin, overseers of despair. And Sauron himself, he did not rest, could not rest, for destruction was his nature, control his obsession. He began to reshape Arda itself, attempting to unmake what Eru and the Valar had made. Mountains were leveled, seas were poisoned. The very stars seemed to dim under his shadow. This is what victory for Sauron meant. Not merely conquest, but the corruption of all living things. The twisting of the world into a monument to his will. Now, we come to the question that brought us to this fireside tonight. Would the Valar have intervened? Would they have descended from the Blessed Realm to save Middle-earth from this fate? The answer is not simple. Nothing involving the Valar ever is. You must understand, the Valar are not as men imagine gods to be. They are not all-knowing, though they are wise. They are not all-powerful, though their strength is immense. And most importantly, they are not free to act as they please. They are bound by the will of Eru Ilúvatar, the One whose design governs all things. Let me tell you of their history with intervention, for the past often illuminates the future. In the elder days when Morgoth, Sauron's master, held dominion over Middle-earth, the Valar did intervene. 3 times, in fact, each time with consequences that echo still. The first time they came in their full might to capture Morgoth and protect the newly awakened elves. They broke his fortresses of Utumno and Angband, or so they thought. But in doing so, they reshaped the very face of Middle-earth. Mountains were thrown down, lands were flooded. The geography of Arda was fundamentally altered. They dragged Morgoth back to Valinor in chains, but they missed his servant, a certain Maia named Sauron, who hid in the deep places and waited. You see, even the Valar are not perfect, a lesson worth remembering. The second great intervention came at the end of the First Age. Eärendil the Mariner, my, that's a tale for another evening, sailed to Valinor and pleaded for aid. The elves and men of Beleriand were on the brink of annihilation. Morgoth's power had grown so terrible that the very sun and moon were threatened. And so, the Valar came. They brought the full host of Valinor, Maiar, Vanyar elves, and all their might. The War of Wrath lasted 40 years. 40 years of battle so fierce that...
40 years? That's longer than most wars in our entire history.
Indeed. And at the end of it, Morgoth was cast into the void beyond the world. Victory, yes, but at what cost? Beleriand, an entire subcontinent, sank beneath the waves. Uncounted thousands died. The landscape was so utterly devastated that what had been the heartland of elven civilization became the seafloor. The Valar won, but Middle-earth was forever scarred. And they learned that their direct intervention, however well-intentioned, brought destruction on a scale that rivaled the very evil they fought against. Their power was simply too great. Like trying to remove a splinter with a hammer. You succeed, but destroy the finger in the process. The third intervention came in the Second Age. Numenor, the greatest realm of men ever to exist, fell to pride and corruption. Sauron, clever devil, convinced them to attack Valinor itself, to seek immortality by force. And what did the Valar do? They called upon Eru. They surrendered their authority back to the One, and Eru himself intervened, changing the very shape of the world. Numenor was drowned. The world was made round. Valinor was removed from the circles of the world entirely, placed beyond the reach of mortals forever. After that, the rules changed. The Valar's time of direct intervention was over, so by the Third Age, by our time, the Valar had adopted a different approach. They did not abandon Middle-earth, mind you. That would not be their way. But they acted subtly, carefully, through intermediaries. That is why they sent us. The Istari, 5 Maya clothed in the forms of old men, forbidden to use our full power, instructed to guide and counsel rather than dominate or rule, to kindle the hearts of the free peoples to resist evil with their own strength, not to fight their battles for them. Saruman failed his mission, seduced by the very power he was meant to oppose. Radagast became distracted by the beasts and birds, forgetting the wider struggle. The 2 blue wizards went into the east and, well, I confess I know not what became of them. That left me. Lucky Middle-earth, But here is the crucial point, my friends. The Valar sent the Istari precisely because they would not come themselves. We were the alternative to direct intervention. We were the compromise between abandonment and destruction. And there's another factor. Sauron was a Maya, one of the lesser Ainur. The Valar had fought their peer, Morgoth, who was a Vala himself, one of their own order. But Sauron? He was, in the grand hierarchy, a being of lesser power than they. To come themselves against him might have seemed disproportionate, like a king leading his entire army against a single rogue knight. More than that, Middle-earth in the Third Age was the domain of men. The time of elves was fading. The dwarves were dwindling. The world was passing into the hands of the children of Ilúvatar, the second-born, mankind. For the Valar to intervene directly would be to deny men their own agency, their own choices, their own triumphs and failures. And that would go against the very purpose of Eru's design. The world was meant for the children. We of the Ainur, even the Valar, we were meant to be shepherds, not rulers, guides, not tyrants. So, would they have come if Sauron had won? I believe they would not have come. Not in the way they came against Morgoth. Not with armies and banners and direct warfare. The age of such interventions had passed. The world had been changed, literally and philosophically, after Numenor's fall. The Valar had learned their lesson about direct involvement. Or perhaps Eru had taught them that lesson. But that does not mean they would have done nothing. I suspect, though I cannot know for certain, you understand, that they would have acted as they did when Sauron rose the first time. Indirectly, subtly, through chosen agents. Perhaps they would have sent new emissaries, perhaps even stronger ones than the Istari, though constrained in similar ways. Maybe even a few more wizards who could actually follow instructions, Or perhaps they would have worked through the elves who reached Valinor. Messages, guidance, ancient weapons and lore sent back across the sea to whatever resistance survived in Middle-earth. Not an army, but hope, knowledge, support. You see, The Valar's great strength is also their great limitation. They think in terms of ages, of millennia. What seems like abandonment to us, living our brief mortal lives, might be patience to them. What seems like defeat might be a longer game. If Sauron had won, I believe the Valar would have waited, watched, guided what they could guide, and trusted. Trusted that Eru's design would ultimately prevail, even if through means they could not foresee. For you must remember, Sauron was not Morgoth. He did not have the raw power to unmake reality itself. He was a corrupter, a deceiver, a tyrant. But he was still bound by the laws of Ea. He could darken Middle-earth. He could enslave its peoples. But he could not destroy it utterly. And as long as the world endured, hope endured.
So, you're saying they would have let Middle-earth suffer? Let entire peoples be enslaved, just waiting?
That is the hard truth of it, yes. It is a bitter draught to swallow. But consider this. The Valar are not cruel. They are not indifferent. But they have seen the long arc of history in ways we cannot. They witnessed the music of the Ainur, the great theme of creation itself. They know that Eru's design encompasses both darkness and light, both victory and defeat, and that free will, the freedom to choose, even wrongly, is sacred. To intervene directly would be to deny that freedom. And what is a salvation without choice? What is a rescue that strips away agency? The Valar could have made Middle-earth a paradise where no evil could exist, but it would have been a prison, not a home. So yes, they would have let us struggle, let us suffer even, because the alternative would be to make us puppets, and that they will not do. But never think they did not care. Why do you think they sent the Istari in the first place? Why do you think I was sent back when I fell in Moria? The Valar may not march to war anymore, but they do not abandon those who fight in the darkness. And here's something else to consider, something that troubles me even now. If Sauron had won, if he had enslaved Middle-earth and twisted it to his will, would he have been content with that? I think not. His master Morgoth sought to dominate all of Arda, to overthrow Eru's design completely. Sauron was cut from similar cloth, if lesser in scope. With Middle-earth conquered, might he not have turned his eye westward? Might he not have sought what Ar-Pharazôn sought? To assail Valinor itself. And that would have forced their hand. The Valar will not march for Middle-earth's sake alone anymore, but threaten their own realm, attack the blessed lands themselves. There are lines even the Valar will not allow to be crossed. Númenor learned that lesson. So perhaps in the long term the Valar would have been forced to act. Not out of mercy for Middle-earth, though surely they felt it, but out of necessity. To protect the boundaries between the mortal and immortal realms, to maintain the world's order as Eru intended. But we will never know, will we? Because Frodo succeeded. Sam carried him when he could not walk. Gollum's obsession led to his doom and the ring's destruction. The free peoples stood at the Black Gate and bought them time. Everything happened as it needed to happen. That perhaps is the greatest lesson. The Valar did not need to come, because the people of Middle-earth, small and flawed and mortal as they were, rose to the challenge. They found in themselves a courage they did not know they possessed. They chose light over darkness, hope over despair, sacrifice over survival. And maybe, just maybe, that was what the Valar had faith in all along. Not their own power to save Middle-earth, but Middle-earth's power to save itself. The smallest person can change the course of the future. I told young Frodo that once in the mines of Moria. I believed it then. I believe it now. The Valar believe it too. So would they have come if Sauron won? Perhaps, eventually, in their own time and way. But the real question is, would Middle-earth have waited for them? Or would it have risen once more, even from the ashes, to fight again? I know which answer I prefer to believe. For in the end, the light that kindles in the hearts of free peoples is more powerful than all the Valar's might. And that is a fire even the darkness cannot extinguish.
Wow. So there you have it. The Valar probably wouldn't have charged in with armies, but they wouldn't have abandoned us either. They would have worked through us, through people, through hope, through the courage we find in ourselves when everything seems lost. It's actually kind of beautiful, isn't it? The idea that we have the power to save ourselves, that the greatest forces in the universe have faith in ordinary people to do extraordinary things. But here's a question for you in the comments. Do you think the Valar made the right choice? Should they have been more active? Or was letting Middle-earth fight its own battles the wiser path? I really want to hear your thoughts on this. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into one of Middle-earth's most fascinating what-if scenarios, smash that like button, share this with your fellow Tolkien fans, and subscribe for more lore, more stories, and more fireside chats with legends. Until next time, may the light of Eärendil shine upon your path.